This is one of the simplest mixing tips that I've ever learned. And this mixing tip usually goes out the window when I feel the song lacks a strong idea, where I'm very insecure about it. So I make the volume really loud because it sounds good. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And then I give myself this false sense of hope, sort of like beer goggles. Now, the mixing tip I want to talk about today is listening, mixing, and making music at low volumes. And you definitely want to hear your song at loud volumes when you feel like the idea is somewhat there, just so you can get a feel of what it will sound like loud. A lot of dance music subgenres definitely sound a lot better louder, so you don't want to, I will never listen to music above negative 69 dB ever again. Now, why is this such an amazing tip that's going to save you a lot of time and headaches? When you're listening at low volumes, it's a lot easier to hear mistakes, clicks. If something is too loud, something is imbalanced in the mix. As a Reddit user says, totally agree. Loads of times I turned the volume down a bit, and then all of a sudden a part that I could hardly hear before is sticking out above everything else. This will make it a lot easier for you to achieve a more balanced mix down. And with a lot of us losing our hearing, developing tinnitus, this will also save our eardrums from the pounding that we receive when we hear above negative 69 dB. Listening at low volumes will make it so that the audio doesn't interact too much with your room acoustics, leading to you making better decisions. Finally, the best reason for all, and the way that I would love to explain it to you guys, listening at loud volumes makes any mix, any song. However, when you listen at low volumes, you take alcohol, you take the beer goggles out of the equation, and it's like you listen to it a little bit more clearly. You're more focused on it because it's so quiet. You can't pay attention to anything else, or you will miss stuff. So listening at low volumes, you'll mix more accurately and won't lose your hearing as fast. I've been producing, mixing, and listening at relatively low volumes for years. Now, being 35 plus, most of my musician friends struggle with some kind of hearing loss. I don't. Now, whenever it comes to extremes, very polar things to do, like listen only at loud volumes for perfect mix downs, listen at low volumes so you can be cleaner than Dr. Fresh. You can use a bit of both to make up your own style. Now, let's get into what I mean about mixing at low volumes. So here I have this song. It's called Can I Ask You, which you can check out on Spotify if you want to support me.
Was it something I did? Still I wonder.
Now, what I mean about listening at low volumes, you want to put it at a place where me and you can talk over this and still hear each other, still hear the music. Now let's go into a drum part of the track. So when I'm listening at this volume, I want to make sure the vocal is in the front of the mix. I want to make sure my drums are heard. And I want to make sure the effects aren't too loud. Now, whenever I'm listening at these volumes, I will notice that a lot of my sweep, and when I'm working on this song at loud volumes, this sounds fine. Right? And your ears might be already like oblivious to it. They got the pounding for like 4 hours straight because you've been working on the song. But when I lower it down to this level, you can hear how it sits above the whole mix, and it doesn't even feel like it's with the song or with the drums. It feels like it's above it. Okay, so you can hear towards the end, it gets a tad bit too loud. So that's where we can pull this down to around where I had it, which was negative 30. Okay, now we have more of a balance. We're going to bring it up.
Can I ask you, was it something I did?
That's one example of the stuff that I see a lot of people that I teach will put way too loud in the mix. Now, when listening at low volumes, the other thing I notice that a lot of people will benefit from this is in their drums. A lot of times drums is where a lot of people fail. Like the clap is non-existent in the track. The open hat is way too loud or way too quiet. I will tell you this, when listening at low volumes, you will tend to put your open hat a little too loud in the mix, but that's why we got to use a combination of mixing at low volumes versus mixing at loud volumes. For example, here's the open hat. See, it still sounds fine. And I could leave it like so, right? So now when we bring it up and then put it in the song, too loud, but at low volumes, the open hat is fine. So at this loud volume, I can say, okay, you know, the open hat maybe has to come down a bit. Right there. Now here I've put something really loud in the mix of the song. Now if I lower it down, I'm pretty sure you guys can tell what I put way loud in the mix. It's the clap. So for instance, the clap. There we go. Now it feels like it's more in there and the vocal sits above everything else. Now there's something called the Fletcher Munson curve, which I'm pretty sure all of us have already heard about it. But if you haven't, the way it was explained to me that made sense is that the louder we tend to hear stuff, the more flattened, the more balanced it's going to sound to our ears. So when you're listening to your track at low volumes, it might not be the most flattering, aka you're listening with no beer goggles. You're listening pretty much to something where all the imperfections are shown. Versus when you put it really loud, it's like you're zooming in, not seeing the whole picture, but there's one part you like a lot. At low listening volumes, mid-range frequencies sound more prominent, while the low and high frequency ranges seem to fall into the background. While at high listening volumes, the lows and highs sound more prominent, while the mid-range seems softer. Now, if you're the type of guy that needs an exact answer at what volume to mix at, then 85 dB to 90 dB, it seems to be one, while EQing and critical listening, it seems to be a value that gets thrown around a lot. What I advise most people is just to lower the volume down. You can lower it down in Ableton, which I think it's better than using your sound card, because sound cards tend to fluctuate sometimes. When you go low, you only hear it on the right side or the left side at times. Hear it at low volumes, mid and high, and then from there, if it sounds good, loud. If it sounds good, quiet. If it sounds good in the middle, then it sounds good, period. So in review, mixing at low volumes is going to be the key to saving time and headaches. And the reason for this is, again, it's easier to spot clicks, mistakes, imbalances in the mix. When you're listening at low volumes with monitors, it's a lot easier to get a good representation of the mix versus when you play it really loud. Well, now your room starts to play a bigger role in the representation you're gonna get. And finally, the most important thing of all, making music is my happiness, and I'm sure it's your happiness as well. So prolonging what allows us to make music, which is our ears, is one of the most important things you should be doing. So I hope that you guys enjoy the tip. Hopefully this prolongs your hearing a bit more, so you can check out my sound banks over at evilsounds.com. You can find all of my sound design work. I work really hard on my Serum presets and have had big artists like Hardwell, Umek, A-Lock, Joe Corey, the list goes on, utilize them. If you guys enjoyed this video, I recommend you check out this video here. If you don't know what buffer sizes means, if you don't know how it works in making your setup run a little bit more optimally, I recommend you check it out, as at least 80% of producers run the wrong buffer settings. So if you don't know what that means, check it out, as it can be the difference between running that nice plugin and having to freeze and flatten all your tracks out. Happy producing.